Hello, another episode of the 90 Day Wins podcast. This is your host, Sandy B, and I am so excited today because I get to talk to my friend Aderonke, aka AB Wilson. How are you doing, Aderonke?
Sandy, I am absolutely well, and I'm excited and thrilled to be here today.
Well, I am so glad to have you here because you are such a dynamic human. I love all the things you have going on. So let's just start with you telling the audience a little bit about yourself, and then I'll go into my specific questions.
Okay, well, first of all, I live in Bermuda,
Yes.
which is a beautiful island. It's actually off the coast of North Carolina. It's about 700 miles off North Carolina, and most people think it's in the Caribbean region, but we're a little north from there.
Yeah.
I have lived in Bermuda all of most of my adulthood, and I grew up between Bermuda and the UK. And I am a consultant, I'm
Yes.
a photographer, I'm a podcaster, and I am just an all round uh, liver of life.
Yes, you are indeed. So let's talk about your work as a consultant. How many years have you been consulting?
So that's a two-part answer. First of all, this time around, I've been a consultant since January the 9th, 2023.
Uh-huh.
Prior to that, I had a consulting business with my brother, and we were in business together for 9 years as
Okay.
consultants.
So, what is it about consulting that you love so much?
It's the opportunity to do different things with different clients. And if I may, I'll just give you a little overview of how I got to be a consultant this time around.
Yeah.
Um, I worked for the government of Bermuda for
Mhm.
about 6.5 years, and then got an opportunity to work in the private sector. I went, and that didn't work out the way I had anticipated. So um, I was at a crossroads in my career professionally. I didn't know what I was going to do. So after a discussion with my husband, I made the decision to travel around Southeast Asia with my camera. Just go off and take pictures and see what unfolded. And what happened was I was on a mountain in Indonesia, and I sat down. It was early one morning. They had woken us up so that we can see the sunrise over these islands. And I got up early and walked about three-quarters of the way up the mountain. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I found a quiet spot to meditate. And I asked myself two questions. The first was, what was the happiest time in your career?
Mm.
And the answer came to me when I was consulting. And I was like, wow, I'm going to go back and do that. When I go back home, I'm going to start consulting again. And the second question I asked myself is, are you ready to go home? And I was. And so when I got back to Bermuda, I had a client. We had been talking while I was traveling, and they sent me the contract on January the 6th, 2023. And that was a Friday, and said our first meeting is on Monday morning at 9:30. And I was like, ah, my company's started. And so I went through the process of what am I going to call it? How am I going to create it?
Yeah.
And I I already had a business profile in that I had a photography company, and that was called AB Wilson Photography. And I spent a lot of time coming up with that name, even though it seems self-evident. I spent a lot of time coming up with that name. And so I thought, okay, it took a long time. I got that brand.
Mhm.
I was like, I will create AB Wilson Consulting. And so that's how AB Wilson Consulting came to be because I already had the logo, I already had the look and feel, and I figured I'd just change photography at the bottom of AB Wilson logo and put consulting.
That is brilliant. One of the things that I've observed about you is you are not afraid to take risk. You are, in my opinion, someone who is really clear about what they desire, and then once you have that idea, you seem to run with it. So can you tell me a little bit about how you look at things and then how you are able to kind of move forward and not be hindered by fears?
So let me just say, I do get scared.
Of
I
course.
absolutely do get scared, and it's overcoming those fears that propel me forward. I would
Mhm.
get a great idea, or what I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
And a long time ago, this wise woman once said to me, Aderonke, if you have a decision to make, go ahead and make the decision. And after you've made it, if it's the wrong decision, make another decision,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I just walk for it like that. And it's about calculating the risk, right? And it's like money. If you're spending more than it allows you to sleep at night, don't spend that much money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's how I look at risk. If it's going to keep me up at night unnecessarily, riddled with anxiety, maybe that's not the right decision. But if it's a decision that I can live with
Yeah.
and or I can pull back from or make a different decision, then I'm like, let's try it. I'm always like, let's try it. Let's see what could happen. Like, what's the best that could happen? And let's move in that direction of the best, what's possible. And I know when I know we're going to get to this, but as a photographer, I created a calendar.
Yes.
And the biggest fear I had was saying, go to the printer. Then I had to say, and I delayed it for weeks, and weeks. And then I found, okay, I had two friends that just said, like, these, these are the two things you have to do by, it was a Saturday that we were talking, by
Yeah.
Sunday night at 8 p.m. Go do it. And that got me over my inertia. So sometimes it's just having good friends that push you and recognize where you want to be and help you to get there. And a lot of the times it has to come from a place from within to
Yes.
say, I really want this. I really want to be able to do this and just step out. It's like stepping off a cliff, but find it's not really a cliff. It's really just a step.
Yeah. I love that. I love that picture of thinking about taking that first step and then being comfortable to know that you can take the next one. And then also, it sounds like you have some really good friends that understand and want to encourage you on your journey.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
love that.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your calendar because I love your photos. And I've told you this before. When you put up a photo on social media, you make me think. I want to know where you've been, where you've taken that photo. I know that you take your camera everywhere with you. So
Okay.
it literally can be a picture from anywhere around the world, which just makes me even more excited to see it. So tell me about the calendar and how that came about.
So when I got back from my travels,
Mhm.
and I started thinking about being a consultant, but I also said to myself, how can I get my photography into more people's hands?
Yes,
And let me just show you what it looks like
please.
for those who will see this on video. So this is the cover of um, of the calendar, and so I thought, oh, I'll create a calendar uh, to showcase my photography.
Yes.
And as I did the research and looked around, especially in Bermuda, there are some fabulous photographers here. And I said to myself, how do I break through the calendars that have been around by amazing artists many years? And so I thought if I went with abstract, which is where my photography lives, where my passion for photography lives, it will be a differentiator.
Mhm.
But then I thought I need something else. And so I came up with the idea of every month having a different theme. And so with that, I thought, okay, so it has a different theme. What does that mean to people? So I
Mhm,
created a blog around that theme. So for each month, so for example, if you look at April, April is inner peace, and that's the image right there. And so I wrote a blog about inner peace, and I wrote a blog for each month. And then I thought, how can I make it more interactive? How can I get people involved in that month's theme?
mhm,
So from there, I created 3C gatherings. 3Cs, they are conversation,
mhm,
connection, community. And the 3C gatherings have two purposes. First of all, to create these communities, these conversations, and these connections,
mhm,
but also to highlight professionals who live in those areas, who can really speak in depth to those themes. And also, which is very important to me, to show without hammering people over how to use appreciative inquiry in a very um, welcoming and inviting way. So the 3C gatherings are opportunities to learn more from matter professionals. And they're also opportunities to really connect with people in ways that you may not do otherwise.
yeah,
And so the calendar is called Let's Spend the Year Together.
mhm,
And it's a 14-month calendar. It started in December 2023
mhm.
and goes through to January 2025.
I love it. I love it. So tell me about appreciative inquiry. I was able to come to a 3C gathering and I absolutely loved it. I've never seen a gathering facilitated in the way you did, and I really
Mhm.
enjoyed it. I really enjoyed meeting the ladies that were on the session with us. So tell us about appreciative inquiry and how that works together within the 3C gatherings.
Appreciative inquiry
Mhm,
emphasizes what is working well and leverages the strength in an organization or any human system. It
mhm,
allows and drives innovation, productivity, and transformation. So let me just give you an example of what that looks like.
mhm,
So as a consultant, many consultants will go into an organization and say, okay, what's wrong? Who's to blame? How do we fix it? Using appreciative inquiry, what we do is look at what is going well. If there's an area or section that really is thriving and highly productive,
mhm,
we'll say, what are the elements that drive that? How are they able to achieve successes? And we tease out the themes that and the activities that make this area a success. And then we bring it into the area that needs to be changed. Likewise, we recognize that people who are working have vast experiences. So we also tap into their knowledge and expertise. Think of a time when you were working in a highly productive team.
mhm.
What did that look like? What did that feel like? And what were your strengths that allowed you to participate in this team? And so with that, we're able to use individuals and collective strengths and successes to identify what works, to identify what we know feels good, and then apply that to the place that we want to go. And so it is a really elegant approach to how you create change in organizations. And coupled with that, with change theory, we recognize that managers have to be treated as employees first. So we work with managers. That's one of the things that really excites me, working with managers to help them improve and become stronger managers for their teams, and in turn help teams to make the changes that they need to be able to make.
I love that because it seems to me that you take the time to focus on the success and then figure out how to continue and grow that in other areas of an organization. So I see how that could be so beneficial to big companies as well as smaller companies. There are so many small businesses that are looking for ways to grow, but have clear issues in certain areas, but are also achieving goals. So having
Hmm.
someone like you come in and help them, I could see how that would be such a great benefit for them because, like you said, you're not just pinpointing and say, this is not working. You're looking to say, okay, what successes have you had and how can we duplicate it in other areas? I love that. And I like that you called it elegant.
Yes, yes, it is because you're using the collective wisdom in the room. And one of the criticisms that may arise is, well, we still have to deal with the stuff that needs to be addressed,
Hmm.
and there are ways of doing it. And one of the questions that I really love asking is, what would you like more of? So if you have a situation where somebody says, "Oh, wow, we need to change this situation," and you say, "What needs to be changed?" And let's just use a hypothetical example. We need to paint these walls. So no, the walls aren't right. That's what's not working, right? So uh, me as a manager, I may say, "Oh, let's build new walls," or "Let's paint the walls."
Yeah.
But that still doesn't solve the situation. Say, what would you like more of? And the person says, "Well, I think we need more blue walls." You now know what needs to be addressed. You now know maybe this isn't the right color wall. Maybe we need um, more blue walls, or maybe we need more meetings, or maybe we need more tools in order to be able to do our job. You're finding out exactly what is needed by asking the question, what would you like more of? Wrong.
Yes, I like that you're asking the question of the people that have the knowledge, right? Because
Hmm.
being an employee, I could clearly tell you what things I wish would be different. So
Hmm.
allowing those people to have a voice instead of just coming in as you know everything really changes the conversation and allows for you to truly give the organization what they desire.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I love that. So let's change gears and talk about your art. You told us a little about your work and being able to travel and to take these great pictures. So where can we see your art? Because I know earlier this year one of your pieces was in Art Basel.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so I have a website, abwilsonphotography.com. You can see a lot of my work there, and I work to try to change it up every so often. But what you see there is the essence of what my photography looks like, and I try to have fun with it. I try to draw people in. I don't know if you could see the picture behind me.
Yes,
That's
I can.
that's one of my images, and it's actually the cover of
Oh,
the calendar. Because
I
I was
love
like,
it.
oh, that's one of my favorites. And and the thing about my photography, Sandy, is oftentimes people will look at it and not know what it is,
Yeah.
and it could be something as simple as I don't know, a wall. Actually, I've got another image right there that you can. That was in an exhibition. It could be something as simple as um, it could be something as simple as I don't know, a tree, but the tree looks slightly different, or a shadow, or a crack in the wall, or a crack in the sidewalk, or two vases together taken from a different angle.
Yeah.
So I like to think that as I'm taking pictures, I'm looking around for the best, and inviting myself to look with the eyes of appreciation and see things that may not be obvious to the eye immediately. And that's when I can really hone in on something specific and say to myself, what else is here? What else is here to discover? And that's what I do. And I can even be at home and give myself the task of just looking around my house and seeing things slightly differently. And what happens if I turn the light on? What is the light doing here? I've taken pictures. I know this is going to sound crazy, in my kitchen with the water running, just to see what it looks like. I took some pictures of bananas and playing around with the shadow, and I sent it to people. What does this look like to you? And so that's what I do. I can be in a space and give myself permission to look around and see things differently, and invite the lens of my camera to help me uncover the beauty that may not necessarily be obvious at first glance.
That is so beautiful to me because I told you when I look at your pictures, it makes me wonder. I can't just scroll past. I have to look and think about what is that? It's like it literally invites me in, and it's like I envision you're letting me into the world that you see. And so the way you just described it, it reminds me to just take some time
Hmm.
and to enjoy the beauty around you. I love that because you encourage me to really observe and to pay attention. I'm looking outside and I see the beautiful green. It seems like a couple weeks ago it was all brown and now everything's green. So I love that because it reminds me to just slow down and enjoy the beauty around me.
Hmm.
Life can be so busy and we get caught up with all the things, all the hats we wear, but just taking that time to really appreciate our surroundings. I love that about your art. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments. Yeah, just to add to where my photography can be found, AB Wilson Photography and Facebook, AB Wilson Photography. So I try to post pictures there on a
Mhm.
regular basis, along with all the other things that I'm
Yeah.
doing. And I also have a newsletter where I will add an image to the newsletter. But just so, in addition to abwilsonphotography.com,
Mhm.
my consulting website has a lot of images,
Okay.
and they're all my images. So as you're going through either website, the photography that I've taken.
I love that. So let's talk about your wins because I know you have some wins that I can't wait for you to share. You've been busy these last 90 days just achieving all sorts of goals. So please share with the audience so I can ask my question.
So I've got to tell you, I am a planner. I'm a certified project manager, so planning
Yes.
is part of how I live, how I
Yeah.
think, how I and so when I look at what I need to do in 90-day chunks,
Hmm.
I think about um, the workshops that I host so that people can begin to understand what appreciative inquiry is and how it works. Because I'm committed to this. I'm committed
Yes.
to helping people to understand it, and even using it at home, right, with your family, asking them questions from an appreciative lens. So I've been doing a number of um, facilitated workshops
Yeah.
and for the public. I also have been doing client work, doing workshops for them, which is really exciting because I get to see teams come in and leave super energized,
Yeah.
super enthusiastic, and ready to start things differently, ready to do things slightly differently because you've had a moment to to just change your thinking, even
Yes.
if it's just a little. And that little in a group is a lot when you go out and start to implement. And so, as you know, another one of my wins, and I totally credit you, Sandy, for helping me, is the launch of my podcast, Heart of the Matter. And that has been so exciting. It has really given me the opportunity to talk to some amazing people
Yes.
and hear some fabulous stories that we get to share with the world. And so I just want to say this, and I know you wouldn't ask me this, but I call our partnership in getting the podcast launched because I did the interviews and I had about 14 or 15 interviews
Yeah.
just lined up ready. And I needed to be able to get them on the air.
Yeah.
And the relay was I passed you the baton and you got me published. you got the the podcast live for me. And so that is a huge win and I'm grateful to you and I'm really excited. That has been part of my journey and one of my biggest wins in
Yeah.
these last 90 days.
Well, I have to tell you, it has been such a joy to be on this relay with you because you did a lot of heavy lifting. So it was just easy to be able to take the baton and get you there, like, yeah, we're going. And I can tell the listeners that I am so inspired by your guest. I'm inspired by the way you formulated it. I mean, we have to talk about these questions you ask because it really does round out what you're explaining to us about how you look at the world and how you think of things and how you're able to use these questions to communicate with people.
And I'm just, you see me looking off to the side. I thought, oh, maybe I should pull up the questions from my podcast because what I do, and I know the concept's not unique, but I like to think it's unique because
It's unique.
everybody,
It's unique. It is.
everybody, and like I created the wheel. I really did. It was round, but I made it rounder. Anyway,
Yeah.
so what I have done is I have created a podcast that uses overwhelmingly appreciative questions to ask my guests. And I start by asking them off air, tell me three things about you. And so I have a descriptor.
Yeah.
I have descriptors. And then the first question I ask on air is tell me three things about yourself that listeners won't know and your friends may be surprised to learn. And it just goes from there. I have 10 questions. And the last question is um, something that's meaningful to me is share a book recommendation, share a recommendation of a book that you've read recently
Yes.
or that a book that has stayed with you over the years. And I've gotten some really great recommendations, and they're all on the website.
Yeah.
But the stories in between they're amazing. They're impactful. People have been willing to share aspects of themselves that I've been surprised at by how open people have been, and I think that's the beauty for me is even though the questions are the same, no two shows are ever the
No.
same. And like I've said, I've done about 15 interviews so far, and I have yet to hear a story or comment or thought that I had heard
Mhm.
previously in another interview. And I think that speaks to the experiences that we have as people. I think that speaks to our view of the world, but it also speaks to our connections because you hear stories, you hear thoughts that connect with you as an individual, and you hear some really great guidance and advice that the person may have gotten
Yes.
that they're willing to share with others. And so while I listen and ask the questions, the podcast is really about the person that's sharing. And I'm grateful. I'm just truly grateful that I get to hear the stories and get to share them with any and everybody that will listen to the podcast.
The world needs
Yes.
to listen to this podcast because, like you said, each guest is so unique and so fascinating. to me, and I feel the same way. I have been making a list. Like, I need to check this out. I need to understand about what is it by Dr. Bancoli, the
Oh,
fractal.
fractal gridding.
Yes.
Fractal gridding. Yes.
And he wrote a book on it. Like, I'm so enamored by this doctor. He is phenomenal. And so each episode just allows for you to see the dynamic individuals and their stories and how they have taken these risks. Nadia, is it, who now lives, where does she live?
She lives in Bali. She
In
lives in
Bali.
Bali with her family.
Yes, and how she talked about it and just the time frame and the focus she put in to achieve her dreams. I
Hmm.
think it's just phenomenal. That there are so many tools and gems you can get from listening to your podcast. So I absolutely enjoy it. I'm so happy that you decided to do this because you have a background in radio, right?
I do. And so many years ago, and I'm laughing because, um, and I'm going to say this because I need to accept it. Let me digress a little.
Uh-huh.
I will be, I will be 60 years old on May the 25th.
60 years young. That's a blessing.
Sandy, I can't tell you. Like when I went 40, I didn't even tell people I was going 40. When I went 50, I was like, oh, now I'm going 60. I'm like,
Celebrate.
where where did the time go?
Yes.
And so I'm embracing learning. I'm learning to embrace being 60.
Yes.
So yes, my first degree is in communications. It's in radio and television production and direction specifically.
Mhm.
So I know how well using the technology of the time. I
Yeah.
know how to put a radio show together. I know how to produce TV programs. But the podcast actually started in about 2009.
Mhm.
I was just learning about appreciative inquiry then, and I got a really wonderful opportunity to travel to Kathmandu, Nepal
Yeah.
for the World Appreciative Inquiry Conference. And I was in space with 400 people from 40 countries around the world, learning and absorbing as much as I could about appreciative inquiry. And I had a notebook with me. I wrote down every single idea that came to me, ideas that people shared on how they were using this amazing tool.
Mhm.
And so I got back to Bermuda, and one of the ideas I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to ask people appreciative inquiry questions on the radio? Because
Wow.
podcasts hadn't been invented at that
Yeah.
time, or at least they weren't as well known as they are today. And so I came back and I talked to one gentleman who had encouraged me so much of the time, and he had in fact introduced me to appreciative inquiry.
Okay.
And I told him about the radio idea, and he said, "Yes, it sounds like a great idea." And I approached a gentleman by the name of Ron Lightborn. He has such a great voice, and asked him to be the host. He said yes. And then I asked my brother, who's an audio engineer, musician, and music teacher. Asked him if he would produce the show for me. He would do the put the show together. He said yes. So I had my team. So Ron and I would go out and just interview people, and Ron was excellent. He saw the vision for the show, and he brought it to life for me. And so we interviewed. I don't know. And I also got a sponsor.
Okay.
And one of the things that I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you who it is.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that I'm going to tell you is I got a chance to interview my sponsor from 2010, 2011.
Mhm.
Because the shows had to be on the radio, you have to pay for airtime.
Yes.
And his sponsorship allowed me to pay for airtime and also to pay Ron and to pay my brother for the
Okay.
work that they did. And so we were able to get it onto the air, and I called it Heart of the Matter Radio.
Lovely.
And so fast forward, um, we did a season, and that season came to an end, and I wasn't able to continue. And unfortunately, I've lost all of the interviews except one. And
Mm,
the one interview that I have that survived, funny, is the interview where my brother's name is Ben
yeah.
Batamosi, where Ben, Ron, and I interviewed each other.
Wow.
And so that and we asked each other the same questions that we asked our guests.
Wow.
And that I treasure that because Ron has since passed
Mm,
away. And so we have his answers to the questions that he would ask people.
wow.
And I shared it recently with his daughter, and she was just, really touched that she got to hear his voice. And I'm gonna publish that
Yes.
as a special edition podcast interview. And so fast forward to last year,
Hmm.
uh, 2023, and I was like, I wonder if I could reprise Heart of the Matter. I wonder if I could create it as a podcast now. And so I started thinking of questions. I started looking at how it could be done. And as I've already said, I know how to produce a radio show. So I
Yeah.
was like, I can do this.
Yes.
I've got the tools, I've got the technology. Technology has caught up with my vision to
Yes.
get it out to everybody. And so I just did it the simplest way possible. I used Zoom to
Yeah.
interview my guests wherever they were.
Hmm.
And so my guests aren't just people in Bermuda. Um, as she said, Nadia lives in Bali.
Yes.
And so we did, I think it was early morning for her, late evening for me here in Bermuda. And we did the interview. And so that's the technology that I've been using. However, you have given me wonderful technology. You've given me wonderful technology, which allows me to create the podcast easier, faster, simpler.
Yes. And I'm so excited for you in this journey. And I love that you still had that burning desire to give the world this amazing tool and show them how they can easily communicate and really get to the heart of the matter. So I love that. And I love that we will get to experience Ron's voice in this new
Yes.
medium and have it continue on forever. That
Hmm.
to me is just amazing win. So you shared some awesome, awesome wins. As I close out this interview, I'd like to ask you, there's someone listening that is hearing you, first of all, thinking, how is this lady 60? But that's another story. Who is thinking, wow, she's done some dynamic things, traveled the world, done all these things. I just want to start this business. But I
Mm.
think I'm too old, I'm too this, I may be, a mom, a grandma, I'm a student, whatever their station in life is right now. How would you encourage them to go after that goal that they desire?
There's one thing that I always say to people, and I firmly believe it, and it is start your journey. Just take that one step because you will meet the people that will help you. You will. I met you. I mean, you and I knew each other, and you helped me to get the podcast live.
Yeah,
If I hadn't had my 15 interviews, which I didn't know what to do with, but if it had just remained an idea in my
yeah,
head and I hadn't started, you and I wouldn't have had the conversation and you wouldn't have said to me, you've got how many? Let's do this. Like you just literally said, let's do this. And you will meet the people. You will meet people that will help you, even if it's a bit of guidance, a bit of advice, or if they say to you, "Oh, well, you need to talk to this person." That's your next step.
yeah.
That's the next thing that you're gonna do to help you to achieve your goal. So I was looking looking at something recently. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I've made some changes to my website recently, and I went back and looked at some old newsletters that I had did about maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, these are so unattractive. But the thing is, it wasn't perfect, but
Yes.
it's there. And it shows my journey, right? It
Yes.
shows your journey. It shows that I made the first step, I pressed send, and it went out into the world. And it was a start. Now, when I look at my newsletters now, that they're far more attractive. But it was a journey. It was taking that step and saying, I'm a start. And that's the guidance that I would give to people. If it's something that you love and you feel, I wonder if, just go for it. Because if you don't do it, um, nobody else is going to nobody else is going to benefit from that. And the other way that I look at it, Sandy, is if you look around you at every single thing that you see, at some point it was an idea in
Yes.
somebody's head, right? And I got my water bottle here, right? This water bottle, the shape, the size, the color, in somebody's head. And if they hadn't said, well, I wonder if I did this, if I made that first step, if I could create it. And I guarantee, I don't know who this person is, but I guarantee you they met the people along the way that help this water bottle become a reality. So whether it's a book, whether it's a poem, whether it's a fan, whether it's a vase, whether it's a new podcast,
Yeah.
whether it's a hairdressing salon, a new club, whatever that is inside of you, whatever your passion is, and you want to be able to see it grow and live and thrive. Try it. And then, always keep in mind you can make a different decision. If it's not the right decision, make
Yeah.
a different one because guess what? You're still moving forward. You're still learning and growing. And you shouldn't deprive yourself or the world of that wonderful idea that you have.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate talking to you. You will definitely have to come back on the show because I so enjoyed talking to you. And you gave so many pearls of wisdom. So thank you, Aderonka.
Sandy, it is a real pleasure, and I truly, truly appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do and how you help people, whether it's through this podcast or through the work that you do with 90 Day Wins. Thank you.
Thank you.